This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Fake nude photos of real high school students have become the focus of a Winnipeg police investigation. College Bellevaux says photos of students posted to social media were altered using artificial intelligence. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
Outside College Bellevaux Friday, students had little to say about images circulating online that were generated using artificial intelligence. Noni Kopcheski's son is in grade 12. She got a letter Thursday from the school saying photos of other students taken off social media were altered into fake nude photos.
It was very disturbing and I was shocked. I was very upset about it.
A letter from the grade 7 to 12 school's principal and vice principal says it was students who brought the issue to their attention. Following our divisional policies relating to appropriate internet use and student behavior, we have been investigating to get a better understanding of the extent of what happened and who was involved, the letter says. While we cannot assume that we have evidence of all the doctored photos, we will directly contact the caregivers of those students for whom we do. All images received by the school will be securely uploaded to CyberTip through Project Arachnid, which specializes in the removal of these types of online images. I spoke with a mom outside the school who says altered photos of her daughter were among those being circulated. The mom says she's concerned after learning about what happened. She hopes whomever had the photos altered is held accountable and questioned why artificial intelligence companies allow this to happen. The Winnipeg Police Service's Counter-Exploitation Unit is investigating. Officers say it's too early to share any more details. The director of cybertip.ca, Stephen Sauer, says creating and sharing fake sexual images of someone can be treated the same way as real photos under the law. He says it can be just as harmful for victims.
They still feel like they're exposed. There's still the problem with people believing that it might be a real image of them. Because it's often hard to discern between real images and AI-generated images now.
Experts warn the problem is only going to get worse.
There are many online sites where I can take your head and take somebody else's body and attach your head to their body.
Kopcheski knows AI is becoming more common, and navigating its dark side will be difficult for schools and parents.
It's becoming a lot more scary out there, and we're educating ourselves a lot more.
Police say so far no one has been charged. College Bellevaux says it's working with the division to determine how to deal with anyone who shared the images online. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Manitoba government hopes to move hundreds of people out of homelessness and into supportive housing. The province announced millions of dollars in funding for the plan today. CBC's Cameron McLean explains.
This was the scene earlier this week in a Point Douglas park. 2 people found dead in a tent, casualties of a fatal combination of homelessness and a Manitoba winter. This is the type of tragedy Housing and Homelessness Minister Bernadette Smith hopes to prevent.
We have felt that the urgency that comes with knowing winter is coming. Already, we've seen 2 of our relatives succumb to the elements.
The Manitoba government announced $5.7 million for a winter response strategy. Half of that money will go towards supportive housing. The province has 128 Manitoba housing units ready for people to move in immediately. Another 32 units are being renovated and will come available soon. The funding aims to make up to 250 units available over the next 3 months. The units will come from a mix of Manitoba housing, nonprofits, and private rentals with subsidies, and will include wraparound supports.
Whether it's mental health or addictions, that's going to depend on what folks need.
The province is working with partner agencies like Mount Carmel Clinic to help refer people who need housing. Executive Director Bobette Schaffner says they see the effects that sleeping rough has on their clients.
There's also much complexity in the lives of those who visit us. Many people, and particularly those experiencing homelessness, have to navigate so many systems to find supports, and they are often faced with difficult choices. Many may sacrifice one kind of safety for another in order to survive.
St. Boniface StreetLink's executive director Marion Willis applauded the province's focus on supports.
It's one thing to house people, but the real work begins once you've housed that person. And so to prevent return to homelessness, we need to be able to provide supports to people.
The units will go in Winnipeg, Brandon, Portage, and Swan River, but the government couldn't say how many units will go in each city. The rest of the funding will go toward housing programs specific to women and the LGBTQ community. The NDP government has promised to end chronic homelessness within 8 years. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It has been just over a week since a man was charged with second-degree murder in the shooting death of 20-year-old Ava Zaber. Now her family is preparing for their first Christmas without her. They were not comfortable with being on camera, but they did share their story with CBC's Sarah Petz.
Come here, give me a kiss.
This is the Ava Zaber her family remembers, smiling and full of love. Her memorial grows outside her home. Her sister can't comprehend the loss.
It just still doesn't make sense. Like, for something like that to happen to her is just not something we would ever think would happen.
Zaber's 4-year-old son, Landon, was her everything. Her family says she took to motherhood naturally.
Growing up, we've always been around small children in our family. Like, we have a big family, so like when she had her own child, it was just her being a great aunt 10 times more.
Police have charged a 20-year-old man with second-degree murder in Zaber's death. They haven't said much about the circumstances, but her mother said she was shot inside her home.
My grandson cries every day for his mother.
Zaber had recently gone back to school and was just 1 credit shy of getting her high school diploma.
She had so many goals and ambitions, you know, and a life she had envisioned for them.
The family held a vigil here in her honor. More than 150 people came, a testament, they say, to the impact she had. Now, they're trying to push forward for her son. Sarah Petz, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba stroke patients will soon have access to better treatment. A new stroke unit is opening at the Health Sciences Centre. In the former Women's Pavilion, 12 new beds will open on Monday. The large space includes a kitchen to help access a patient's recovery. You can assess how well they're doing, and a gym to work with physiotherapists. HSC's Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Sean Young, says there's nothing else like it in the province.
Got lifts built right into the ceiling, so when patients have mobility challenges, it's much easier for them to be able to get out of bed and even get into the washroom as well, because the washrooms are relatively open. So it's just much more enhanced services for their needs.
Roughly 3,500 strokes happen in Manitoba every year. The province says this new space means many patients will have access to intensive rehabilitation within hours of having a stroke. The ever-rising cost of food is changing how many of us eat and how we stock up on groceries. It's also impacting the holidays. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel shows us how families and charities are making ends meet.
When a kid opens a pack and they just waste it, so I try to keep them in containers.
Jessie Alcasabas keeps an organized pantry for her growing family of 6, especially with soaring prices at the grocery store.
Prices really have gone crazy.
She says the cupboards aren't as full these days.
Used to be this, you will never see this, these shelves empty.
The Alcasabas family celebrates the holidays with Filipino dishes and traditions, a feast that starts after midnight on Christmas Eve. But her husband Gumsy says this year they won't have as many choices.
Because of the beef right now, the prices, I don't think that's part of the menu now. We're just going to opt to something else.
So let's go take a look at one of the hampers.
Over at the Christmas cheer board,
a couple things of pasta, some cookies for the kids, because
they're feeling the price hikes too, with demand for hampers at an all-time high of more than 19,000. It means there won't be extra protein.
The only thing we've been able to keep providing is the canned tuna. We would love to be able to provide meat options or even to provide a gift card, but this year we just can't.
Last year, they gave out more than 18,000 hampers. Executive Director Shauna Bell saying food inflation is costing the charity $160,000 more this year for that amount of food. And they're spending even more to meet the higher demand.
Very difficult decisions that people are having to make about how they're going to spend their money, what little money that they have available.
Dalhousie University's Agri-Food Analytics Lab says the cost of holiday food staples like carrots, potatoes, and turkey are up between 5 and 13% since last year. The lab expects many Canadians to choose lower-cost options this season, and that's what we heard from Winnipeggers.
Yeah, we don't buy the treats anymore because, yeah, they are terribly expensive. So, yeah, there's certain things we won't buy, like the high-end stuff or whatever, deli trays.
I pretty much just shop for what's on sale, and I guess I probably am not buying as much fresh fruit and like berries and stuff like that. I normally serve a brunch, and I'm kind of omitting that.
Although food inflation could ease off in 2024, Canada's latest food price report anticipates a family of 4 will spend about $700 more next year than in 2023, with Manitobans seeing above-average increases in the cost of food.
For Alcasabas, buying bulk, freezing deals and smaller portions on top of meal planning all help maintain bills in their budget.
I look at the prices and I have to compare. Where can I save more? Which is better in the deal?
It's an added step, but they're celebrating being together. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
This one.
Working from home full-time has hit the end of the road for most workers at Manitoba Public Insurance. The auto insurer has told staff it will be moving to a hybrid work model for most employees. This will align MPI with other government departments and Crown corporations. Starting in late February, most of MPI's staff will be in the office 5 days out of every 10 they work. This will impact 400 employees who've been working from home full-time since the pandemic. Kate Fensky of the Downtown Winnipeg Biz is pleased by this announcement.
Whether it's a Crown corporation or a private company that is committed to our downtown, that is investing in our downtown and wants our downtown to be successful, having more people here not only improves vibrancy, but it also improves safety. So hearing that hundreds more people might be coming back to work downtown is great news.
But the union for the workers says many are upset. The Manitoba Government and General Employees Union says after a long strike that just ended, it would have thought MPI would try to rebuild relationships with staff rather than impose an unpopular rule. 2 Winnipeg families have new homes tonight. Habitat for Humanity Manitoba handed over the keys this morning. CBC's Zubina Ahmed introduces us to one of those families.
This for my 2 children will be here, and for Emmanuel and Ebenezer, this here their room.
For the first time, these brothers will have their own rooms. The Engara family received keys to the new home today. They're one of the 2 families moving into these Elmwood townhouses.
This new house is very good, and you have your own parking lot. Our building has no parking on William, so it's very hard to get parking. And we have our own basement and laundry.
Engara immigrated to Canada 9 years ago from Sudan and joined Habitat for Humanity's home ownership program. Like all participants, Engara put 500 hours of work either building this house or volunteering.
When I built on this house, I did hammering, and it's kind of, you feel something happy inside because you put something on your house, you put your hand on the house to be built. And I was so glad that I got that opportunity to work on this.
Habitat for Humanity is a non-profit that builds affordable homes for low-income families with children. Jamie Hall is the organization's CEO. He says they're trying to address the housing crisis across Canada.
The Habitat mortgage is a 0 down payment and 0 interest mortgage for 15 years. But most importantly, their mortgage payments are 27% of their net income. So it's not based on the amount of the mortgage, it's based on the money they're earning.
In March 2023, the Government of Canada and Habitat for Humanity announced an additional investment of $25 million to build over 500 new affordable homes over the next 3 years. This brings the total federal investment to over $80 million. family of 5 has been living in a subsidized rented 2-room apartment. Ngara says the new 4-bedroom home will give his kids more space.
They will not worry about next what's going to happen, because when they grown up and they will have their own home, you know.
The family will move into this house in 2 weeks. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It's time now to check in with Riley Lachuk, who is covering the weather desk for us. Woohoo! And he's covering it from out at Assiniboine Park Zoo. What's happening there, Riley?
So, Janet, zoo lights well underway here at Assiniboine Park Zoo. In fact, goes right through until the 7th of January. So if you're looking to take advantage of some of this mild December weather that we've seen, yeah, this is the place to be, because we have some pretty cool stuff, including this hula display happening behind us, and a lot of other stuff. We'll tell you more about it as we get through the hour here. But yeah, as I mentioned, we've seen some very mild weather through the day today once again across southern Manitoba. We do have some cloud cover moving through, but otherwise we're seeing a mainly clear sky, some sunny breaks here in southern Manitoba through the day today. And really for southern Manitoba, that's going to continue. We do have a system south of the border impacting Minnesota and the Dakotas. That is going to miss us. Just a little bit of a high weather cloud. But as we get into the day on Saturday, we do have another area of low pressure impacting northern Manitoba. This skirting along the territorial boundary, impacting the Hudson Bay coast, areas like Thompson, Flin Flon, Napaw. Expecting some light snow as we get through the day on Saturday. Slim chance you could see maybe a flurry through the late afternoon, early into the evening on Saturday and into Sunday. Otherwise, you know, what you see is kind of what you get today across much of the province, even as we head into Monday. Really not a lot of precipitation to speak of, and as we're looking longer range, really not much in the way of snow, even right up until Christmas at this point. So we're looking at fairly consistent, and you know, we're going to be staying quite mild even as we get through the next little while here. So this snowfall projection takes us out 48 hours for northern Manitoba, generally 2 to 5 centimeters across much of northern Manitoba with that system moving through. -3 now in Winnipeg, a little bit chilly. It was about on the freezing mark when we got here a little earlier in the afternoon here. Pressure is rising, and as we look at the temperature tonight, -10, a few clouds, light winds, and that light wind is going to continue as we get into the morning tomorrow, -9. South winds at 10, and we're looking at another pretty similar day tomorrow to what we saw today, -2 in the afternoon. Sun cloud mix, so a nice day to get outside tomorrow, especially with that sunshine that we're going to see. Looking at your long-range forecast, a little bit of wind through Sunday and Monday, but otherwise temperature is still above normal for this time of the year, which is -10. We'll be at -3 on Sunday, -6 on Monday, and -5 on Tuesday. So like I mentioned, a great time, a great temperature if you're looking to take advantage of something like zoo lights, for example. And Janet will have much more from here coming up a little bit later on in the show.
Thank you so much, Riley. Check in with you later. Israel's military admits it mistakenly killed 3 hostages who'd been kidnapped by Hamas. The story is next. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Israel says its forces have mistakenly killed 3 hostages kidnapped by Hamas. This news comes just hours after the country announced it recovered the bodies of 3 other hostages, a civilian and 2 soldiers. CBC's Chris O'Neill-Yates has more.
The Israeli Defense Forces say they mistakenly killed 3 hostages during ground operations today in the Gaza Strip as they tried to take out Hamas militants and targets. It is not known if Yotam Haim, Samir Talalka, and Alon Shamriz were abandoned or had escaped from their captors. Earlier today, Israeli government spokesperson Elon Levy said that in the past 24 hours, they've identified the remains of 3 more hostages, 2 of them military personnel.
Corporal Nick Bizer and Sergeant Ron Sherman, who were abducted on October 7th, and Ilya Toledano, age 28, abducted from the Nova Music Festival.
U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other officials yesterday. One stated aim, getting more humanitarian aid to displaced Palestinians in Gaza. In a statement today from the White House, Sullivan said Israel has agreed to open up the Kerem Shalom crossing on the border of Israel, Gaza, and Egypt in order to ease congestion at the Rafah crossing. Everything is in short supply as rain has made an uncomfortable situation worse for people living in this tent camp in Rafah. The water flooded our tent. I woke my 7-month-old child who was soaking wet, says this woman. We have just 1 blanket for 5 people. The Middle East war is top of mind as EU leaders meet today in Brussels. Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo says the situation in Gaza has worsened dramatically since members met in October. The aim today to hammer out a common position on the conflict.
What should be our objective is that the human suffering should end on both sides, and there's been way too much human suffering.
For these Israelis, to see their loved ones returned alive is their greatest hope. But for 6 more families today, that glimmer of hope has been extinguished. Chris O'Neill-Yates, CBC News, St. John's.
Manitoba's premier has sent a letter to the Prime Minister about what he calls the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. Wab Kinew is urging Justin Trudeau to allow refugees from Gaza into the country. Kinew says Manitoba is willing to take in people seeking refuge and to provide any required supports. He says it should be done in a way that allows these potential refugees to return home in the future. 3 alleged members of the militant group Hamas appeared today in a German court. German prosecutors say 4 suspected Hamas members were detained on suspicion of planning attacks on Jewish institutions in Europe. 3 were picked up in Berlin, the other in the Netherlands, where the country's threat alert has been raised to its 2nd highest level. Denmark has now widened this terror investigation. Authorities have 2 people in custody. 4 others are being investigated. The Danes have not said if any of these people are linked to Hamas. Hundreds of people gathered here in Winnipeg last night to pay their respects and honor the life of a former Winnipegger and peace activist, Vivian Silver. The 74-year-old was killed when Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel October 7th. 2 of her sons arrived in town from Israel to be in attendance. CBC's Brittany Greenslade was there.
I am deeply and totally committed to bringing about a political agreement between the 2 sides.
Vivian Silver was a force. She was a tireless advocate for peace and women's rights.
She was relentless. She never gave up.
But to her sons, Jonathan and Genzeigen, she was so much more.
She had a really strong center and even stubbornness. And she was fierce for what she believed in.
A mother, a grandmother, and woman who always tried to make the world and the Middle East a better place. It was that Vivian Silver they remembered Thursday at a memorial in Winnipeg.
She would march for her causes at noon and tuck us into bed at night.
She would arrange encounter groups between Israelis and Palestinians in the morning and inquire about our feelings after we came home from school.
For more than a month, Silver's family believed she was among the 240 hostages taken by Hamas after the militant group's attack on Israelis October 7th. But she was killed that day inside the kibbutz. Her remains only identified weeks later.
There's always hope, but once we found out there was no hope, and when we were in between the two different worlds, it was very, very difficult to grasp.
Her sister, Rochelle Gamliel, still breaks down in tears when she sees her photograph, the loss still fresh.
Hell. Devastating. Very, very difficult to comprehend this has actually happened.
Silver's home was walking distance from Gaza. She devoted her life to promoting peace between Israeli and Palestinian people.
Our mom believed that violence only brings more violence. And we're really seeing the worst of it now.
Yonatan says their mother would be heartbroken with the ongoing war, knowing she worked so hard to try to prevent it.
Seeing so much pain and destruction, the continuation of this pain since the 7th, no end in sight. So I think she would have been devastated.
Her sons are now setting up grants in her honor to go towards women who make strides in promoting peace and policymaking between Jews and Arabs in the region, just like their mother did. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Israel-Hamas war has been on the minds of EU leaders. So has the war in Ukraine. All but one of the leaders are in support of giving Ukraine billions of dollars in new aid. The exception to that united front is Hungary's Viktor Orban, who has close ties with Moscow. But war-torn Ukraine needs more than financial help and more than the bloc's support to fend off a prolonged Russian invasion. CBC's Briar Stewart brings us more.
The 27 EU members don't all agree when it comes to Ukraine, but most vow their differences can be put aside. Hungary's Viktor Orban is the outlier, literally. He was advised to step out of the room when the bloc voted to approve formal EU membership talks with Ukraine. Things can't be solved every time by going outside, said Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz. That's reserved for special moments, such as the decision we reached now. Orban, who has strong ties to Vladimir Putin, didn't veto that move, but says he might in the future. If the EU doesn't unfreeze funds being withheld from Hungary over concerns about the country's rule of law. As for now, he says he will block an EU deal to provide Ukraine with 50 billion euros. So those discussions have been postponed to the new year.
I'm extremely confident and optimistic that we will be in a position to fulfill on our promises to support Ukraine.
President Zelensky, are you confident you can persuade Congress to give you the aid?
The holdup of EU aid follows the debate in Washington earlier this week, where Republicans have blocked more U.S. support for Ukraine, despite personal pleas from both the Ukrainian and U.S. presidents.
I believe Ukraine will get the money that the EU has promised it.
But this political expert says the bigger problem will be if the U.S. doesn't reach an agreement.
There is undoubtedly many types of ammunition and other military aid that only the United States can provide.
And that is what Ukraine says it desperately needs as it tries to seize momentum on the battlefield in a war that Ukraine's top general now describes as a stalemate. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Canada's new law, intended to make tech giants pay for the journalism they share on their platforms, is set to go into effect next week. Google and Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, are the only companies big enough to qualify under the Online News Act. Meta has complied with the new law by blocking news content from its platforms altogether. But Google struck a deal with Ottawa to give Canadian news media $100 million a year. Marina von Stackelberg has more now on how that money will be divided up.
It's a great day for the sustainability of our newsrooms.
The Heritage Minister says this law creates more equality between Canadian newsrooms and the tech giants that profit from posting their stories. Of $100 million Google will give Canadian news organizations a year, nearly 2/3, 63%, will go to print and digital media. CBC Radio-Canada will receive roughly $7 million. All other broadcasters will get $30 million. The money will be divvied up to news outlets based on their number of full-time journalists.
Smaller news outlets also have a seat at the negotiating table with the tech giants.
Print and digital media publishers say this will make a tangible difference, especially for small newspapers.
You know, if you look at it on a sort of a headcount basis for journalists who work for news publishers, it's roughly in the neighborhood of $20,000 a journalist, which is certainly on par with top deals around the world.
Canada's private broadcasters say they're also in the digital publishing business and should have received more.
When we take a look at where Canadians are turning for their news, we know that they are turning to television and radio first, and that we also know that in terms of who is investing the most in news, it is broadcasters.
Google says while it still disagrees with the law, it's pleased with the deal it struck with Ottawa. Meta says it has not changed its mind and will keep blocking news stories for Canadian users.
We're looking at every tools that we can use to persuade Facebook and Meta that their platform is better with news content on it.
Media outlets now have to reach out to Google to prove that they qualify for the money. Cash is expected to start flowing by this summer. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
The newly elected National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations made her first official public visit today. Cindy Woodhouse spent the day at a place in Saskatchewan which holds special meaning for many First Nations people. CBC's Jason Warwick was there.
You feel grounded.
Cindy Woodhouse spent the day at the Poundmaker Cree Nation, 200 kilometers west of Saskatoon. It's her first community visit since she was elected National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations 1 week ago in Ottawa. She received a warm welcome from proud elders and other residents.
Well, to have Cindy Woodhouse, the National Chief, to come to my home territory here in Poundmaker is a really honor to have and meet my elders, and as well as to come and look at what we go through as our daily lives here.
Woodhouse is from a Manitoba First Nation, but she was also made a member of a Poundmaker family through a customary adoption.
Some of the people here have been very influential in my life, and working together and talking about the ceremony, and I'm so proud of them for, Buffalo represent a new beginning, and I think that we're in a time of renewal, of rebirth.
Woodhouse said she came to Poundmaker Cree Nation because of her family connections, but she says this land and its people are also reminders of First Nations resistance and survival. In 1885, the community was attacked by Canadian government troops. When the soldiers fled, Chief Poundmaker prevented his warriors from pursuing them, preventing further bloodshed.
Everybody looks up to Poundmaker and the stories and the strength that they have here, and I needed some strength today, so I came here on the land.
Woodhouse says there are so many issues to tackle in First Nations communities, from housing to child welfare, but she says it's also important to spend time on the land, remembering who you are and what you're fighting for. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Poundmaker Cree Nation.
Winnipeg Jets fans are in for a special treat at tomorrow's game. For the second time, the team is hosting a South Asian Heritage Night. CBC got a sneak peek at rehearsals for a performance of the Canadian National Anthem in Punjabi. That's coming up next. Tomorrow's Jets game is an important one for fans who are members of Winnipeg's South Asian community. It's the second time the Winnipeg Jets have held a South Asian Heritage Night. As part of the celebration, the Canadian national anthem will be performed in Punjabi.
Let me know. This one is a little fragile. Okay, then I won't touch it. We're a group of local musicians that have come together for this wonderful event. We decided to collaborate with the South Asian Heritage Night for the Jets game. It's a great honor and a great privilege to be able to express our culture in such an amazing event that has been put on by the Jets. There are a lot of South Asian communities in Winnipeg, and so it's a great collaboration. Yeah.
So imagine like 10 of them in the back. And then Winnipeg has this ability to form very quickly. There are so many talented performers and musicians, and everyone is passionate about the Winnipeg Jets. And so once the opportunity gets out there, everybody wants to be involved.
So the instrument that I'm playing is called taus, T-A-U-S. It's a Persian word that means peacock, and it's a stringed instrument that's played with a bow.
Come like right up to the front.
I'm a little nervous. It's a little overwhelming. Oh, say, can you see? I've actually never sung anything like this in Punjabi, so this is definitely like a first unique experience. When I was I was told of the opportunity, my mom just told me it was like for a hockey game, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's like a small like little school hockey game. And then somebody told me they were the Jets, and I'm like, Mom, you forgot to mention that this was the Winnipeg Jets. Like, I'm going to be singing for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, that's my dad.
It's so amazing. It's so humbling. It's just what Canada represents, inclusivity, fairness, and it's just a labor of love for everyone, and it's amazing that everyone can come together to celebrate this night.
I think it just speaks to the strength of Canada and the diversity that Canada holds. Winnipeg Jets and True North have done a fantastic job in celebrating culture and mixing it with sport. It's an incredibly proud moment. It shows the rest of the country that as beautiful as our national anthem is in English and in French, for have it sung in different languages and to be celebrated equally is a huge moment for all Canadians.
Weather Update is brought to you by the Art and Beauty of the National Ballet of Ukraine, January 29th at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Tickets at nationalballetukraine.com.
Let's head back to Assiniboine Park Zoo and Riley Lachuk.
So if you're like me, Janet, and you really like going and driving around and looking at Christmas lights, this is a really good place to come because you can, get your steps in and see some really lovely holiday lights to boot. And you still have lots of time to come out and check out zoo lights here at Assiniboine Park. And we'll be talking a little bit more about what's going on here over the next couple of weeks and, of course, what there is to do here at Assiniboine Park in just a little bit. But let's first take a look at your provincial weather. And we are going to see some very strong winds once again in parts of northern Manitoba. The Hudson Bay Coast in particular, starting off Saturday with winds out of the south gusting up to 50 or 60 in the Gillam and Churchill region, but picking up again as we get into the afternoon, as we get into the evening on Saturday before things start to die off. So nothing like we saw earlier in the week with the blizzard-like conditions along the Hudson Bay Coast, but certainly going to be fairly gusty and whatnot as we get into the later part of of Saturday and into Sunday in northern Manitoba. Looking at our current temperatures, -3 at the airport right now, -2 downtown. Generally right around -5 across most of the capital region, and that extends out into the rest of southern Manitoba. -5 in Melita, -3s for Dauphin and Brandon, -2 in Swan River. Into northern Manitoba, -17 in Churchill, or we're actually going to be seeing a rising temperature as we get through the night tonight. -14 in Gillam, -11 in Island Lake. So looking at your forecast for tonight, we're looking at a partly cloudy sky across most of Manitoba and northwestern Ontario. -7s in Kenora and Dryden, -3 in Fort Francis under a partly cloudy sky. For the southeast, temperatures are on the -10 mark tonight, -8 in Pinawa. Otherwise, right around -10 for Winnipeg, -12 in Emerson with a partly cloudy sky. -12 in Brandon, -10s in Portage la Prairie and Morden Winkler. And in northern Manitoba, this is where we're expecting a little bit of snow to move through into the day tomorrow. Temperature rises to 0 in Churchill by the time we get to the morning tomorrow, and hovering around -1 before falling down to about -8 by the time we get into the rest of the day on Saturday, around the freezing mark through southeastern and southwestern Manitoba, partly cloudy skies, and Janet, northwestern Ontario, we're looking at temperatures around the freezing mark as well.
So mild for December.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Riley. You can see some people there enjoying the beautiful lights behind Riley. We're going to see more of Assiniboine Park Zoo and learn more about this special Christmas event when CBC Winnipeg News returns. Starting to feel a little bit lazy when it comes to, you know, the lights that are up at my house, because really there aren't any. And you look at what they've got up at Assiniboine Park Zoo, it's just incredible. Our Riley Lachuk has been there reporting live for us tonight, as well as covering weather for us. Riley, tell us a little bit more about where you are.
So we're right by, I think, is probably the most romantic part of Zoo Lights. So if you're looking to do any sort of proposal or pictures or something like that, this is probably a good place to do it. Right by the love sign. Laura Kabak from Assiniboine Park Conservancy is with us now. So before people come out here, what should people know before they come to Zoo Lights?
Well, they should check the weather because it's an outside event and we want everybody to be comfortable. And fortunately this year, the weather has been phenomenal. But all the other information they need is on our website, assiniboinepark.ca. This is our annual holiday event. We've been doing it 5 years. It's an amazing way to get into the holiday spirit, and there's so much to enjoy for people of all ages. It's family friendly and just a lovely event.
Yeah, there's lots of families here tonight. So for those who haven't been, I guess, tell me what Zoo Lights, what the experience is like when you're coming through here.
So this is a walk-through experience. We have about 1.5 million lights in all these beautiful displays, lots of photogenic favorites like the love sign you mentioned. But also there's always something new every year at Zoo Lights. We like to change things up. So this year we've added some new interactive elements. You saw some of the hula hoopers earlier tonight. We have an LED maze, we have glow-in-the-dark games, and we have this really cool display this year called Domino Effect by Ingrid. It's these like life-size dominoes that glow in the dark and make music when you topple them down. So lots of fun interactive things that are really popular for the kids.
And you know, the weather might seem warm, but you say that we should really make sure we dress a little bit warmer.
Well, sure, the weather's been amazing this year, but you don't want to get cold. So, you know, lots of layers and everything else, and make yourself comfortable. But there are places to warm up. We have fire pits in a few different places. We have a big event tent. We call it the Marquee. You can go in there and get some food because we have lots of snacks because it's the holiday season, and of course there's treats. And you'll also find in the Marquee tent Santa. He's here every night until December 23rd, but then he has to go. He has a big job to do. So after that, there'll be some other characters here to entertain the kids.
If anyone's looking for more information on Zoo Lights and how to take it in, where can they go?
All the information is on our website, assiniboinepark.ca. Everything to plan your visit. Buy your tickets in advance if you can. Some of those busier nights do sell out. It's time ticketing, but again, everything's there for everybody.
Laura Kabak, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And stay warm.
Yeah.
And I'll be right back after the break with a look at your 7-day forecast. Stay with us. Well, here's a look at your 7-day forecast now. And yeah, we're looking at a pretty stable weekend weather-wise. We're looking at a high of -2 on the way for your Saturday. Sunday, Monday could be a bit on the breezy side. We're going to see a bit of a cold front moving through, which will dip our temperatures for Monday, -6 for a daytime high. A little bit closer to seasonal for this time of the year. And really, if we're looking at the long-range forecast, not a lot of precipitation coming. And I think if we're thinking about a white Christmas, what you see is kind of what you get at this point. We're looking at -5 for Tuesday, -7 for Wednesday, then warming up closer to the freezing mark once again by the time we get to late next week. And of course, the holiday travel weekend if you're doing some traveling for Christmas. So Janet, if you're needing a little bit of inspiration for your own Christmas display this year, this is a great place to come out here to Zoo Lights in Assiniboine Park Zoo.
It really does look festive. Riley, thank you so much for telling us about us and letting us see so much. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You got it.
Now, so it might be a good time to, stay indoors this weekend, maybe do a little baking, because we all love home baking this time of year. There is a bakery in Saint-Pierre-Joly that does it for you. It's sold thousands of tourtières since November. The owner of Boulangerie Saint-Pierre Bakery says more than 7,000 meat pies have gone out the door. Imagine how much work that will be. Well, Jocelyn Gagne does have a team of 30 employees. He says they make nearly 300 pies every week throughout the year, but their operation really ramps up during the holiday season. Our colleagues at Radio-Canada stopped by the bakery to bring you tonight's Daily Lift.
I think it's traditional, right? So, I mean, they've been doing it for so long and people expect it and they love it, and it's a tradition even at Thanksgiving. I'm not French, but I brought it to my family gathering and everybody loved it. So Christmas, I'll be bringing it again. The morning there's a rush, at lunch there's a rush. Do you have any of those meat pies? I have meat pies. I've got hundreds of meat pies. How many would you like?
We live in LaSalle, and we thought, oh, it'd be a nice ride to go and see what it's all about.
So, is it the first time?
First time.
Why?
Well, it's supposed to be authentic, so we'll see. I'm assuming it's going to be because it's French-Canadian. I usually make my own, but this year I decided not to, so I'm curious to try them.
My husband and myself like tourtières, so we thought, let's go for a little drive. And so here we are today, because we wanted to get some tourtière and some, I guess they're cinnamon kind of treats. So that's why we're here. It's a nice drive, nice sunny day, and that's why we're here, yeah. When I worked at Winnipeg School Division number 1, a lady used to bring one in for Christmas, and I just fell in love with it. So I said to my husband, if I like it, you're going to like it.
Ooh, everything looks delicious. If you want to take a drive and check that out, it was the Boulangerie Saint-Pierre Bakery. Whatever you do this weekend, I hope you have a wonderful time. We'll be back at 11. Have a great weekend.